Okay, so first question, Paul, is what was the first AI tool you used that made you go, wow, this is a game changer?
Well, let me give you a little background first on who I
Okay.
am, because while I'm an HR guy, I'm actually a tech guy by trade. So I'll tell you, my first wow moment was in 1993. And that's when I saw this thing called this NCSA Mosaic browser for the web, the web browser on the internet. Later became Netscape Navigator. Well, I saw that thing and said, that's going to change the way we do things in the world. Started my first online business in 1997 to figure out how to use this web thing to make something and sell it. Did well, sold that to another company, built another one to 99. We sold that to techies.com, and then built another one that sold in 2019. So I saw the web browser, that first web browser thing on the internet back then, and said, this is going to change things. Well, in December of 2022, there it was, this thing called GPT that came out onto the world. And I read about it in one of my technical things going, and I knew about AI. AI has been around for decades, but this generative AI concept, really the first consumer product was this ChatGPT. I started playing with it in December and I started asking it questions. I dove right into, where are you getting this from? Show me how you're coming up with. I mean, I was asking those questions and of course it was telling me, and I'm like, what is this thing? So then I started thinking, how do I use this in business, HR? And I'll tell you, that's when it started, December 2022, which again, people only realize it's like a baby, really, because it's only just a little more than 2.5 years old at that point. So that's the first tool that got me excited and said, what's this going to do? And I will tell you, one of the first things as I started to really use it a lot, probably about the fifth or sixth month, is then I realized I deal with a lot of HR people. And I'm a business person. I'm a business person that does HR. That's how I approach it. And a lot of HR folks aren't necessarily business oriented or technical
Mhm.
oriented. And I said, wow, they're just going to have a hard time understanding this. I mean, they're going to be behind the eight ball on this. So I started on my mission. That's why I do the speaking I do, the programs I do, is just trying to help HR people know where to get started. I know we'll talk about some of that today, but really not be afraid of this, understand it, embrace it. And I will tell you, and I think a year ago when I said this, people might have been more skeptical, but I don't think there's anyone out there today that doesn't believe that AI will change how we all work. It's just,
Mhm.
it's going to. Now, what it's going to look like, I can't tell you. Anyone that tells you what it's going to look like in the next 3 years, they don't know, because these things change fast. So,
Okay. Yeah, the slide at one of the presentations that you did where you showed it was a child like a year ago, and then now it's a teenager.
yeah, it was a seven
That
year
is the
old, right?
truth.
Treating
It
it
is.
like it's a 7 year old. Now it's this smart intern that's on your team.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. All right. What's the biggest misconception that business leaders have about AI?
I think the biggest misconception that business people have is that it does everything. That it can handle everything, it's going to do everything for you. That is not true at all. In fact, it is not good at a lot of things. One of them's math, but it could learn math better.
Mhm.
The one thing that AI, and I cover this too, and I talk about it, the one thing that AI is not that good at, and I don't think it's going to be good at for a very, very, very long time, and that's the part that humans bring in, is what I call what Army War College calls it, VUCA.
Mhm.
Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. When there are those situations involved, it really, AI stumbles. If there's competing information, it doesn't know quite what to do with it. Now, it'll debate it or it'll do its little thing, but in the end, it doesn't know how to make a judgment decision. In fact, there was a guy that wrote a great article the other day, talked about the three things humans need to do to figure out your value with AI is, curiosity, curation, and judgment. He said he did. I mean, it was a 42-page article he wrote. It was very long, but very in depth. It's on my LinkedIn if you want to go look. I commented on it, I think on Saturday or Sunday. I think it was Sunday. But curiosity, curation, and judgment are the things that we still bring. So again, the misconception is that it's going to do all this stuff for us. It'll do some great things, but it's not going to do everything.
Okay. Great. It doesn't spell very well either, I've noticed.
No.
What's up with that?
And a lot of times it doesn't follow instructions, but sometimes humans don't either. But
Yeah, that's true. Can you give us some real world examples of how HR teams and managers are using AI today?
yeah, I think the largest one that I see people out there using, and there's a variety of tools, some are built into their human capital management, whatever it is the whole talent acquisition process. And again,
Mhm.
that is, from the attracting to the sourcing, recruiting, and then the processing, getting them in. And that's the one that's probably the toughest one because it's most fraught with the issues of having biases built in and possible disparate treatment, discrimination, that type of stuff. So, it's getting better and better. I know we'll talk a little bit more probably about some of these things, but that's one area. Onboarding is the other area. I can tell you right now, onboarding, having it help you design better onboarding processes and how that works is really powerful. And then the biggest other one I see is talent development, career development, talent development, helping people find a career path. For those organizations that are more sophisticated. I worked for one before this job where we were very sophisticated. We could tell you came in at this point. We gave you the options you had available and skills to develop and all this stuff, and then you could work your way to this job and then this job. And I mean, it's powerful when you can do that. Not every organization has that capability. So I think AI is going to help us, small organizations to the larger ones,
Mhm.
figure that out and do that well.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that angle.
Yep.
Where should we start if we want to start using AI but feel a little overwhelmed?
Well, I'll say this, and it's in my speech. It's probably one of my last ones. The best time to start learning AI was yesterday. The second best time is today. You got to start. So people have to start. And again, over the past year, although I will tell you, I'm still surprised at my HR speeches. I did one a couple weeks ago, HR Virginia, their state SHRM. I was there and still surprised the number of people that came up after that told me that they still haven't really used AI. And I'm like, wow, that surprises me. College students. I was at a college talking to students in the business courses. And three of them came up and said, all right, you've convinced us that we're going to actually start using AI. I said, you haven't even played with it. Like, they haven't even gone out and played with it. So I know
Wow.
there's still people that are in that mode, but the simplest thing to do, and honestly, this is the easiest thing to do, is go open chatgpt.com because it's free. You don't have to pay if you don't want to. The second thing is think of something personal. Because again, professional, there's all this stuff going on. Just think of something personal, planning a trip, a meal plan. You want to get really fancy. Multimodal is a great thing. Take a picture of everything in your pantry and say to ChatGPT, tell me what I can make from this stuff. I mean, literally, it's that
Wow.
easy, right? Just start. Because once you start doing that, you get hooked. Trust me. And I've had people come up and say, and then I did something. I followed one of your prompts on my prompt today that I do on LinkedIn, and they're like, now I can't not stop using it. Right. That's the thing is, but you got to start somewhere. So I tell people try personal first because it's a little easier, it's a little safer, and just simple meals or how to write a little letter to my cousin or my nephew or just something like that. And again, don't copy and paste that, please. Put your emotions in it, but it'll help you come up with creative thoughts and ideas.
Hmm. Okay. Very good. Yeah, it does amazing at planning a trip. I used it for that purpose. And I
And the
think
better a profile
with your
you build
prompt,
about telling who's going on the trip and the likes and dislikes from food to activities and
uh-huh.
any accommodation, I mean, the more you give it, the more powerful activities. Asking it for, we're going on to this location on this time, tell me what events are
Hmm.
going on, because it can now search the web and tell you some events that are happening. Yeah.
Okay. Share with us, you mentioned chat GPT. So excuse me, share with us some of the different tools that are available for people that are beginner to moderate.
Sure. So, there are thousands of tools, but don't get overwhelmed. What I will say is the simple ones are the chatbots, the Chat GPT. Google's is called Gemini, Microsoft's Copilot that now are being built into their products. You've got Perplexity is another one. Anthropic makes one called Claude. I have a document out on my website we'll talk about later that you can go download. And
Mhm.
I've got on there, I think, the 9 major chatbots. Amazon even has one. If you're on Amazon store, the little Amazon, what's it called? R, I forget what it's called. That is available separately too. So there's a bunch of those. Those are chatbots. They're
Mhm.
basically just you can interact with them and ask a lot of things and keep stuff. But then you've got your specialized tools. You've got the ones that are made specifically to do things. And so in the HR world, there's lots of them about talent acquisition. There's a ton of them that help you do onboarding or talent development. But then you've also got all your
Mhm.
tools, your human capital management tools and all your HR tools that they're putting AI into them. It's going
Mhm.
to be harder and harder to find any tool. Adobe has it built in now. Canva has it built in if you use that for graphics. Anywhere you
Mhm.
go, there's an AI component typically built in. So getting used to, no matter where you use AI, and you've seen this from what I talk about a lot, is I'm not tool specific. I don't really look at a tool and tell you, use this for that and this and that. The chatbots, again, I'll give you the list of them. I'm about building the relationship and understanding how to communicate with these things, because no matter where it is, you still have to communicate. Even if it's verbal, if you're talking to it, you're still communicating, and you've got to give it instructions. You got to help it understand what you're trying to do. The better you get at doing that, the better results you get.
Okay, very good. So what AI tools and capabilities do you think will have the biggest impact on employee retention and engagement?
Yeah, so had a great conversation with a gentleman over in London. He's got his PhD in talent development, so you can imagine he's a pretty smart guy. And we started talking about talent development, career development, and that. And he clarified something for me, and I love this concept because I started talking about something about personalized. He said, "Well, hold on a second. Let's clarify the difference between customized and personalized." So the first step is customizing your talent development processes, which means customizing them to your organization. So someone may come to you and say, okay, here's a great idea, or you might get AI to generate an idea for a class you want to teach about leadership or something. That's great. But then you need to customize it. And this is where profiles come in. Customize it specifically to your organization. That profile should be, here's who we are. Here's what we do. Here's what we're about, our mission, our goals, how big we are, the types of employees, where we're located. Do we all work together? Are we all separate? That type of stuff. The better you build that and customize that leadership request class, the better off you're going to be. So instead of a generic leadership class that's done across 10 different companies, do it customized to your organization. That's powerful. I think that's
Mhm.
one of the biggest impacts we're going to see. Then to get to personalization, like how to personalize someone's career path, that takes a lot more data. That takes a
Mhm.
lot more to tell it about that person, who they are, where they've been, what skills, what talents. I mean, try to do an inventory of everything about you, all the experiences you've learned in life and stuff. That's hard because truly to get personalized, that you got to have a lot of that information. So I liked that concept of the personalized versus that. But I think that's going to have the biggest impact is the talent development, career development area, followed only by onboarding, which are kind of related. Is you're going to have the ability to say, here's all of the things we need people to do to get integrated into our organization. And it's everything from simply meeting the team to completing training, compliance training, whatever it is, and then customizing that for the job. So, for instance, in our bank, we have people that'll come into our new hire orientation. One day, everyone comes to the same location because we're spread across 2 states, and retail banking is wherever the branch is. But we bring everyone in on the first day. But if I've got a branch manager who's coming in with 20 years of experience, and after she's done with the class, and I've got a young man coming in who's got very little experience in banking, in fact, maybe never worked in the bank world, but he's coming in as our customer service rep.
Mhm.
Well, they leave new hire and go into the same training. They go to the same training and all this other stuff. Well, you know what? And we're working on this. I don't say we've got this figured out. That bank manager, branch manager, they already know transaction stuff. Why should I put them through that? Now there's not much specific to what we do. Our software is very specific, but even if they came from a bank that used that same software, why am I putting through them that software training again? There should be a very simple one that says, here are the things we do with this software at our company. And not make them go through 2 weeks
Right.
worth of that same training. So that's the type of thing that will have an impact on onboarding, is when we don't have to waste that person's time, we get them on the floor working, let's go.
Mhm.
Or the people who need a little bit more, who may need to understand, we've got a whole process we've built that says, here's how a bank works, because most people don't understand deposit operations. There's a lot more than you see at that teller stand. So, we put the younger people, or the people who are less experienced, through that, not the
Mhm.
experienced people, because we teach them, here's what a bank is, here's how a bank works. So that type of thing, I think, is going to have the biggest impact right away.
Okay. Is there a way, this is a personal question, I don't know if anybody else cares, but to build, I know with like Chat GPT, you can say, develop a presentation and it will share with you the notes and things like that. Is there a way to actually um, develop a visual presentation? Like probably not on PowerPoint, but on some other platform?
So
And what
with
tool would you use?
AI, like a chat GPT, you could tell it to generate, and I did this in my seminar last year. Haven't done it recently, and I bet it would still do it. You could have it to generate the Visual Basic code that you could copy and paste into a Microsoft presentation, a PowerPoint, and then generate the slides. That's a little clunky.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, there's a better idea. There's a tool called Gamma, GAMMA.app. They are phenomenal. I love Gamma. You go out to Gamma and you give it text, you give it ideas, you give it thoughts, and it generates what they call cards that you can then turn into a presentation, full graphics. It's got an AI graphic built in. You don't like the graphic, you go over and say, no, 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 make it like this, make it like this. Change the colors. You can set themes. Phenomenal piece of software. And you can take those cards and turn it into a website with those little hero sections and things that pop up. I mean,
Wow.
I use it. I use Gamma a lot for my presentations. In fact, my latest presentation, my latest speech, which I'll be speaking at National SHRM again this year, it was built
Mm-hmm.
with Gamma. I used Gamma to build that and then brought it in. Actually, I brought it into Canva, and did some tweaking of it, but Gamma built the entire thing like that.
Okay. Did you say it was gamma dot
App, app. Yep.
app, gamma dot app? Okay.
One of the most amazing tools. And I mean, I use the pro version and I think it's $108 a year. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's how inexpensive some of these tools are to do that. Now, I will say eventually what's going to happen is Microsoft's PowerPoint's going to have that built into.
Yeah.
They're all building the three
Mm-hmm.
major, and we don't know what Apple's doing. Apple is the quietest. Apple surprises me that they have not done much anything, but your three major players are all building this stuff directly in Google and Microsoft especially. Most
Mm-hmm.
of those small little organizations, I don't think Gamma is going to be one, are probably going to disappear because they're building all this stuff directly into their tools.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What are some day-to-day tasks, and it could be HR or other, that AI can take off your plate immediately?
Yeah. Emails. Whew. I have my emails are in Gmail account. So I actually use Gemini to help me scan emails. And it's not so much to respond. There are products out there. A company called Every has one called Cora that will go through your inbox and kind of put together responses that you still have to approve to send. There are
Mm-hmm.
things like that that are phenomenal, but I just simply use it. I have 40, 50 newsletters I subscribe to. Most are dailies. That's a lot of stuff coming into my inbox. I have a
Mm-hmm.
special inbox just for that. And I have AI help me given a very specific prompt. I got a very large prompt that says, here are the topics. Here's what I'm interested in. Here's what I want to show me. Basically, scan these emails and give me anything in the email that's related to these things. I don't want the other fluff. So that
Mm-hmm.
has been extremely helpful. If you can figure out, most of us inbox management's always been a chore. Inbox management's a big one. The second thing is, of course, I call it task management. If it can help you keep, I have an accountability coach. I have posted this on LinkedIn. That it's a 21 or 25 page line script that you can set up one of the AI engines like ChatGPT to be your accountability coach. And every day you come in and say good morning in that conversation, and you've prompted it to either give you some inspiration, ask what you've done, where are you with these goals. I mean, it will walk you through basically accountability. That is awesome. That is very helpful for people to help keep track of projects, where you are, what's my to-do list today, what do I need to focus on, what's coming up next week. I mean, you can just ask it and it's got it there. Powerful thing about that too is at the end of the month, you can kind of say, give me a recap of what I've done this month. And you should send that to your boss and say, by the way, remember, these are all the great things I've done. That's the show your ash type concept yeah, move your ash. I always talk about it's to know, grow, and show your ash. So that's your ash value is what have you done? So, and then finally, the one last thing is, and this is another one in HR, it's a really challenge. You've got hiring leaders in your organization and you put them through interview training. Interview training is tough. Interviewing people is one of those things. It's a talent, it's a skill, it's a whole bunch of things, but you can train people on how to do it effectively. The issue is a lot of people don't hire all the time. So they hire today, you put them through training, and then the next hire might be a year from now. Well, they forget some of that stuff. So do you put them back through it and stuff? I built, and my team uses this a lot. I built an interview coach that you actually can say, here's the job, and generate sample applicants, and then let's walk through the interview. So you say, okay, question one, what AI will do is it'll give you a response based on that applicant. Generally, it'll give you a pretty decent response. And then it gives you follow up questions that says, here's some additional things you should ask. So it's kind of helping you walk through. Then you can challenge it and say, okay, give me an answer that's not as good, not as specific, not as clear. and it'll come back with, and it comes back with some weird answers sometimes, and then it gives you ways to how to respond to that, or how to follow up, or how to dig deeper. So I found that that is one of the most powerful ways to use AI for some of those things that we need the skills but don't always use them, don't always flex them. And like I said, that has been one that we have used in our organization. I had a manager the other day say to me, I can't believe how this has helped me interview, understand and interview for these people. Now, they don't use it during the interview, they use it to prepare
Right.
for, here's the things I should be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it could create an interview guide for you from the
Correct. Right. Yep. And
um,
then from that conversation, say,
dialogue.
great, give me some questions I should ask, including, because a lot of times interview guys just have the question, they don't have follow up questions. And it
Right.
has some follow ups based on,
Hmm.
if they answer like this, follow up here. If they, if they give you, if you ask for a specific situation, tell me about a time when you helped make a customer happy, and they don't give you a specific time, it will show you, they were vague, ask it deeper, or they were specific. Yeah. Maybe you move on. I mean, it's a great process for that.
Okay. There was a question in the chat. Is there an
Mhm.
AI tool for FMLA?
The closest I have seen out there is Galileo. If you're familiar with Josh Bersin, who had his own company, then sold it to Deloitte. Now he's back off doing his own thing again. He built a product called Galileo that has his entire knowledge base, which includes all of that area of HR in this AI engine. So it's not just a general chatbot, it's a very educated chatbot. I haven't used it specifically for FML, but it may have some stuff in there. There are legal groups that are trying to figure out how to create these types of things too, because of course those laws are very complicated. They are somewhat changing at times. I don't know of any specifics, but I would say check out the Galileo. The issue with the Galileo is it's expensive. I think it's like
Hmm.
$400 a month. Yeah, so
Hmm.
most organizations just don't have the power to pay something like that because it's pretty expensive.
Okay. All right. What do HR and business leaders need to know about the ethical use of employee data when using AI tools?
Well, if it's a public chatbot, don't put it in. Period.
Hmm.
The only way you should be using your employee data in systems is if you have it behind the firewall in your world. Now, that's coming for a lot of organizations. There's two ways that's going to happen. One is companies will set up their own language models in their world. They'll bring in the tools, stay behind their firewall, access their data, but the issue with that is, the technology of that's not the hard part. The hard part with that is you have to hire prompt engineers who can come in and take your data and train the model. That's the hard part. Is
Hmm.
train them on, this document means this to us. This, when you see this, or we use this term in our company and it means this. So that's the hard part, is training your model so it gets really good at what you need it to do. Now, a recent event that's come up that's kind of an interesting concept is this thing called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. Not going to get very technical on you, but MCP is an open source concept. Anthropic came out with it, which is who makes Claude, and OpenAI just accepted the concept, the protocol. So, I mean, you got two competing organizations that say they're accepting this standard to interact, which is kind of powerful. In that world, and it's just starting to happen, you set up an MCP server, or you help someone set it up for you, so you can use the language's power, but all the data is accessed from your network. So it never uses the data in the model, but you're using the power of the model against your data. That is very powerful. That's going to change the way it just literally came out probably a month ago. And I think by the end of this year, early next year, this time next year, we're going to see these MCP servers are going to be the solution. You're going to find solution providers are setting those up for HR folks to say, listen, you don't have to go invest in all that stuff. We'll just do that for you, and you can choose the model.
Hmm.
But then it's your data, it's secure. So just be very cautious if you're putting any employee data into any type of AI. Be very conscious of the fact of where is that data resting, and is it used in the model? Is the model doing it? So, one of the alternatives, and I've taught people how to do this too, is you can take your employee data and anonymize it. So you can actually replace IDs with fake IDs. ID one becomes ID 742. You have a spreadsheet of that. Names the same way. You can change the names as long as it's hooked to this other ID. and then use that data to process and say, tell me more. What should I be looking at? As long as it doesn't have any PII, like, well, if it has a birth date and you've anonymized it, it doesn't matter. But like an address, you can't really change an address because if you're trying to do geographic stuff, the address is the address. So be careful about that because it can tie that back. But change it to something, analyze your data, and then use your spreadsheet if you're ever looking to delve back in and say, all right, tell me specifically about that area. Who were the five? And it gives you those five fake IDs. And you can come back over here and say, all right, now here's my real people. So you can do things like that. But a lot of times the analysis of data, processing things, you're not caring about the individuals really. You're really looking at big picture stuff. So a lot of times you don't even have to
Mhm.
go back and do that.
Okay. Do you think that organizations need to have an AI policy?
They do. And in our case, we decided not to make one separate from we already have an IT acceptable use policy, which already, because
Mhm.
again, in the banking world, we got to be careful. You can't put customer IDs,
Yeah.
customer data, customer account numbers, so we've already got that. So we just expanded it and said, same thing's true with AI. You can't put a customer account number in there. You can't put their name. You can't put their, latest balance information. You can't put
Mhm.
the accounts they have. So we've taught everyone to say that same thing. Just do not
Okay.
put that information. Industry to industry, you may have different things going on that has that. You may have that own, but you definitely have to have some policy that dictates. Actually, I say it's two framed. There's a policy that tells them what they can and can't do with it, but then you should also have training. Training is the other
Mhm.
piece that we're all missing, and it's not just how to do prompts. That's one piece. That's important, but it's really what I call. I've got the ethical, moral compass, the four points. You've got to really understand. Should I be first question is, should we even be using AI to do this thing we're going to do? And if you look at it and say, no, we shouldn't, then don't. If it's
Mhm.
not going to help humans, if you're not really going to do something. And then the second thing is you get to the next layers of, all right, so now we've decided, yes, we're going to use it. Now, how do we use it so that we safeguard those things? And sometimes you can put up fail safes, but really it's, in my speaking today, I talk about risk management, the likelihood and the impact to the organization, a little four box. And that top right box, high likelihood, high impact, is actually not a technology. You look at all the things I put in that box, they're not technology, they're people. They're how
Mhm.
people use the technology. In fact, I'll say this because we all know this is true, because we have to go through all the training all the time. Your biggest vulnerability on a corporate network, on an email network, isn't the technology, isn't the phishing people trying to send you stuff and get through. It's you opening that PDF that then spreads the virus on the network. It's the
Mhm.
human that actually is the one. So AI is not very different. It's the same thing.
Okay. I see a comment that came in. What is the MCP? What is the MCP server? Is there a program for that? How are you using it with banking and not allowing it to get the personal information?
So we are not using it in banking. I'm
Okay.
saying it's a brand new protocol that just came out. I've been watching the research,
Okay.
watching what people are trying to do with this. We are not using it. I'm not even close to it yet. So it's actually an open stand. It's a connecting standard, really. It's a standard. So that's all it is. And then the servers are when people take the standard and set up a server that will connect with another piece of application or some data and use the model's knowledge to say, now do this. It's kind of like when OpenAI, when ChatGPT finally was able to search the web, it sort of opened the web content to it. It's that same concept, but so it's just a protocol. It's an open protocol, open standard protocol. It's not a specific product. People are going to
Mhm.
start building products using these things. That's what you're going to see next.
Okay. What skills will HR and business professionals need to stay relevant in an AI enhanced workforce?
I talk about this quite a bit. And first of all, there's two things. It's adaptability and emotional intelligence. I claim those two from all the stuff I've seen, and I'm just past 2,000 hours now using lots of different AI tools, and have spoken to well over 7,000 people at this point. And of course, National SHRM, they got me back in the ballroom. Last year, I had over 1,200 show up, so there's likely to be just as many again
Gracious.
this year. Yeah. So when I talk to people and stuff, it really comes down to that adaptability. These things change. They're changing faster than even sometimes I can keep up with. So I can imagine it's making other people's head spins. But being adaptable, don't go to the sidelines. Sometimes people move to the sidelines like, okay, too much. Don't do that. Just find someone that'll keep you in the game and just keep you moving. So the adaptability to me is the first one, and then the emotional intelligence is funny. There's two types of emotional intelligence. We used to have just one, the human emotional intelligence, the EQ or EQI, if you think of it that way. But I've developed a whole new concept of AIQ, that AI emotional intelligence, which is similar to the human intelligence, a human emotional intelligence, but it's got some very different capabilities. So, as I talk about, and you know, Leslie, you've heard me talk about this, and I know other people here that have heard me speak talking about this AIQ concept. You know, it is you developing that relationship with AI, you developing the way to understand how it works. It understands how you work, and then together you work together. And that's a relationship. It's more than just any other tool. And I talk about this. It's more than any other technology. We're asking people to build a relationship with this technology, not just use it. And that's different. That's going to take your mindset to shift a little bit and think, okay, what's this mean? For instance, you know, there's some people out there tell you should always be really nice and empathetic with AI. I'm the opposite. I say no. You shouldn't be empathetic because you're going to confuse it. If you
Hmm.
say, well, that was okay, sort of, I need you to talk about, no, because it's going to be like, okay, you liked it. No, that's where that 7-year-old concept comes in. You've got to be direct and specific and say, you didn't follow this instruction, regenerate it and do it again. You know, basically, you can be curt with it. It doesn't care. Typically you shouldn't do that with humans. So that's where the two emotional intelligence have to come out. Is you have to, as we get people to be more highly AIQ, you got to be careful we don't go too far that we forget the human side and start treating
Hmm.
humans like that. Now, if you walked in the office and say, I don't care, do it, typically not a great leadership style. So I think that's going to be the bigger challenge is as you learn this new sort of emotional intelligence for how to work with these systems and understand, balancing again with your own human intelligence. In fact, Hyle Rutledge, that runs OKA up in Northern Virginia, he and I have this very smart guy, really good about emotional intelligence. We have this talk all the time, and at one point, we started it, and he said he was afraid, sort of, it's going to take away the need for us teaching human intelligence. And then he realized later on, he goes, "Oh no, this is going to actually increase." I said, "Right, I think it's going to
Hmm.
increase as people get better at this." Yeah, no, remember, there's still this over
Yeah.
here, so we're going to have to build that balance between the two.
Okay. I do have a few more questions, but I'm going to pause on them and see what questions our participants have.
Sure.
So you guys can either speak up or type in the chat. Maybe nobody has any. We've done such a great job covering
I
all
was
of
going
the
to say, giving them everything
components.
they need to know, or scared them completely, and they're all like,
Yeah.
"Oh boy."
I'm a bit overwhelmed. I want to figure out how to make the accountability coach work. We'll have to talk about that online.
Yeah,
Off.
I can send you that. I've got a PDF of it. I can send you I've got the interview one too. I can send those to
Oh,
you that
okay.
you can then share with this group if you want. Yep.
Okay. That'd be great. And I will say for everybody, if you are not following Paul's prompt today on LinkedIn, I highly recommend that you do that.
New
Okay.
prompt every day. Yep.
Well, we will get back to my, here's one.
Oh,
Which AI are considered internal, not public?
So only ones that you've actually purchased and are building internally. So there's products you'll buy that will be internal. When I say internal too, it doesn't necessarily mean it's sitting in your network. It could be on the cloud. So for instance, if you're using Dayforce or Workday or UKG and you're using their AI tools, that is internal. It's not going to be a public AI engine. The
Mhm.
public ones are when you type a URL and go to a public engine, those are public. And you know, they're all public based, so be very careful about those. It's when you're internally on some software running in your world, cloud or network, that's when it will stay in your world.
Okay. And another question, what free AI service would you recommend?
The gold standard right now, again, I mean, I have my favorites. I use Claude more. Actually, that's not true. It depends on what I'm trying to do. But for generic purposes, for anyone that's really getting started, OpenAI's ChatGPT is the standard. It is
Mhm.
the easiest to use. They've got projects now, which is really powerful. So you can kind of, so for like my community, we'll talk about in a few minutes. I've got a community, the AI Clatch. I've got a project and everything I do. So I've given it the instructions of what this is and how it works, and then all of the conversations I have are around that. I don't get it confused with all my other conversations. That's a powerful new feature too that'll help you. So you could have like I have one for fitness. I have one for home maintenance and gardening. So I have them very specific so it knows who I am and doesn't confuse me as the home gardener with me, the guy running the AI class. That because again, there could be
Mhm.
weird concepts. So I like that concept. So OpenAI's ChatGPT is the gold standard. But don't be afraid of playing around. I will tell you, I love Google. I'm a Google guy. Almost everything I own is Google except my Mac computer. I love my Mac computer. But and my daughter is a senior engineer with Google who actually works on AI stuff. I don't know everything that they do. She can tell me some stuff, but they've got the worst. Their Gemini is terrible. It is probably from my perspective the worst one out there. So Copilot's better. ChatGPT, Perplexity, and that's why I've got a document on my website. If you go download it, the Journey one that has at the last, I think, 22nd page, it has a list of all those things, those with links that you can get to.
Okay. As business leaders and HR folks, there's a lot of trepidation about AI taking jobs and fear of how it's going to impact us in the future. Do you have suggestions of how to deal with that?
Sure. Well, I'll start with this, and I'm stating this, and I'll state this right out. It is going to take away jobs. It's going to. Anyone that's telling you it's not is lying to you. And you say, well, Paul, you might be lying. It may not. No, I'm telling you it's going to because the desktop computer took away corporate secretary, took away a
Mhm.
secretary concept, right? Or a typewriter. How many offices still have typewriters or adding machines, right? The spreadsheet took away that. There might be pockets of these, but most of them are gone. So jobs are going to change. But then again, look at social media came along and we have social media managers, search engine optimization people, drone operators, right? We never had drones before. So there will be new jobs as technology comes in. It's just there will be a bunch of other jobs that won't be there anymore. And that's going to happen. And that's going to happen
Mhm.
in our world too. Not only HR, but all the companies we help run, there's going to be jobs replaced. So the first thing to do is, and I say this up front, is accept that it's going to be here. Don't stick your head in the sand and say it's not going to. It is. The second thing is understand what it is. Keep learning about it. Find ways to just basically understand. And that's why big impetus to what I do is just talking about it in ways that get people at least not excited necessarily, but understanding it's not as bad as you think. There are some great things, and then embrace it because we're especially in HR, we're gonna have to figure out how this is going to change our workforce development. Workforce planning is going to look very different when you've got humans and AI agents on your team. And those are some of the
Mhm.
things in the future. The AI agent concept hasn't even fully flushed out yet. When you've got these humans and AI agents working together on Zoom videos, in Slack channels, answering questions, that's going to change the way we operate. So we have to really think about that. And then I always say, find people. There's some great people out there having these discussions. Have the discussions with them. Talk with them. See what other people are doing and saying. Learn from each other. But it's part of that adaptability. But you got to be open to it. You got to get past that. This is just a fad, and I'm not. Nope, it's too overwhelming for me. You got to move past it, and that's the first thing I'll say.
Mhm.
It's create the habit, really.
Okay. I know this is a moving target, but somebody is asking what jobs are in HR are likely to go out with AI.
Honestly, and again, I think it's going to reduce the need for the number of people. So, in an organization, in my previous organization, I ran worldwide talent acquisition. I had 25 recruiters. We hired 6,000 people worldwide, every year, 145,000 applicants. In my world today, as if I were running that as AI comes along, I might need 7 or 8 of those recruiters, and the rest of it's going to be taken care of with
Mm.
AI processing. So it may not remove the job, it's going to remove the number of people needed to do it because they're going to get better and better. A lot of the stuff we do today that's manual is going to be replaced by it. I mean, that's what's
Mhm.
going to change dramatically. And that when I help organizations set up these little pilot projects that 5 people, 5 to 7 people for a 4 week period of time, let's just pick something. And I usually say to them, find something that's so manual that you just click and click and click. If you're doing a lot of clicking, that's manual. Let's build what that would look like with AI on the team. And then, in the end, we're not necessarily building it, but the key is I'm helping them understand what that looks like in their organization. And then they can go from there and say, all right, we're going this path, that path, or find others. So it's really helping them understand which ones. So I can't tell you exactly which jobs because it may differ in each of your worlds. But I think what it's going to do really at the beginning is reduce the number of people needed to do a lot of these jobs.
Mhm. Okay. Very good. So, what suggestions do you have? I know you've talked a lot about staying current, learning more about AI. Do you have suggestions on how to do that?
I do, and again, like I said, just get part of get part of some communities that are having these conversations. LinkedIn, there's some great people to follow. In fact, I've got a document I did for a group that they said that one of their questions was, "Who should I follow on LinkedIn?" And I said, I've got all these people I follow on AI, and I'd never thought to put that together. So I put together a list and have a little thing that has a list of people to follow on LinkedIn, and said, "Here's some great folks on LinkedIn to follow. Some great newsletters that are out there if you're more so inclined." But really is finding ways to continuously learn both. And I'll say, just in the profession or your industry. Your industry may have some great people who are talking about how AI is used in your industry in there. And here's a fun part. If you don't know of any, use AI. Go to ChatGPT and say, I'm in this industry, I'm in this profession. Give me some examples of people who talk about AI. And again, be careful because you got some AI people that are really technical. And I mean, there's some research people that are powerful. I look at some of their stuff. In fact, a lot of times I have to take AI and say, okay, take this paper and bring it down to Paul Carney level. It knows Paul Carney level. So it knows I'm not, I'm techie, but not even at the level these people are. And then again, apply it to my thing and say, all right, given everything I'm doing over here with helping people understand, how do I talk about this? So you can do that. You can go. So I would say if you're doing a prompt like that, be very specific and say, I'm looking for very high level. This is my level. This is who I am and what I'm doing. My technical from a 1 to 10, one being not much to 10 being total, is, a 3, whatever. And then I'll give AI a little more power to find the people who will match what you're looking for. And use it, play around with it. Don't be afraid of AI. That's the other thing too. People are like, it's one of those, you're not going to break it. Ask it some bizarre things sometimes. I mean, I've even got some creative prompts I show people that just freaks them out. Whereas I've got one that says, come up with a new recipe that's using galactic things, so it comes up with the tears of a phoenix, and it comes up with a dish that is bizarre using all of these strange made up things. But you look at it and you kind of say, wow, that's so cool, it's neat. And then it gives you the creative characteristics that when you mix this ingredient with this, it does this, creates a mini, could be, creates a dark hole. It's just one of those weird things. I love that. It's one of my more creative ones that you can play around with and say, give me some stuff. And of course, you can have it generate stories. If you've got kids and you've got kids that have favorite characters and stuff, ask it to generate a bedtime story, a seven
Okay.
minute bedtime story using characters from XYZ, da 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 da. And you'd be amazed. Or friends, incorporate
Mhm.
friends into it, their friends or their favorite pet or favorite toys. And suddenly they'll have a story that's made for them.
Okay. Well, I'm saying WTF over some of this because it's so far above my technology level. But tell us about WTF.
So WTF does not think it doesn't stand for what you think. It is Wine Tasting Friday. So that actually came about 5 years ago, and it was my wife and I, of course, being level 2 award in wine, which is sort of sommelier level 2s. Except we're not focused on the service side. We're focused on the behind the scenes, the vineyard and stuff. We really focus on that, which is the difference between those two levels. They're same training of sorts, but we're not focused on helping people listen, teaching them in the restaurants. But so in that training, we visit a lot of wineries. We've been visiting wineries for a long time between Virginia and North Carolina. And when COVID came along 5 years ago, we couldn't go to wineries anymore. So her and I are like, all right, we're kind of stuck in the house because we loved meeting people. So she came up with the idea. She went up to wine.com and said, I'm going to order a bottle every Friday that we have not tried before. And we're going to have wine tasting Friday. So at the early days of it, we got zoomed in. We zoomed in with a bunch of our friends. We'd order the same bottle,
Mhm.
they'd have it, we'd have it, and we'd sit there on Zoom just tasting it and talking about it and having fun and picking on each other.
Uh-huh.
So, and it became a tradition. We didn't stop doing it even when we could get back out to wineries. We just every Friday did it. And it was Darren McKee last year when I took his social selling cohort, and we
Mhm.
started talking about how to put yourself out there because last year in January I had like less than 3,000 followers. Today I'm well over 11,000 thanks to Darren teaching me some of the things. And one of the things he said is you got to put some, the stuff you put out there can be about business, it can be about life, but you got to put something more personal and stuff. Like, I'm not that way, I don't do that. So he
Mhm.
knew my stuff about WTF. He goes, put the WTF out there. So I'm like, all right, I'll try it. We
Mm-hmm.
started it last summer, and yeah, it is some of my more popular posts. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got people who if they don't see the bottle on a Friday afternoon, and usually Friday morning to early afternoon, they get upset with me. One time we were going to a whiskey tasting Friday. We went with some
Yeah.
friends to a new whiskey bar. So
Mm-hmm.
I did a WTF whiskey tasting Friday, and oh my gosh, did I get so much flack for that. People were upset. They were like, "Where's the wine tasting Friday?" So, anyways, yeah, we WTF is Wine Tasting Friday, and every Friday on LinkedIn, there's a new post of some bottle. This week, I don't know, I forget which one this week, but in that following week, we're going to be in Georgia, so we're going to do WTF on the road, WTF OTR we call it. So
Oh,
we'll be there
look forward to that.
tasting from there. So I'll actually be posting a picture live from there of what we're tasting.
Okay. Well, let me ask first, any other questions? All right, just type in the chat if you come up with something. But Paul, I want you to share how we can follow you and how we can learn more from you.
Sure. So, the best thing to do is I'm on a bunch of different social media, but really LinkedIn is the one I use the most. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram. I don't go out to Facebook very much. I have a personal Facebook. I don't have a business one. Actually, that's not true. Ishtot, my company, is out there, but I haven't really even gone out and looked at it. Which, by the way, the company I started in 1997 still exists today. I build everything I do under Ishtot, which is ISHTOT, and stands for I should have thought of that. Yes, I
Hmm.
came up with that way back in the 90s before ChatGPT. So the best way is on LinkedIn, and then on LinkedIn, there's a visit my website you can go to, and that'll take you to the new community we're building, the AI Clatch. So I have designed content, I've designed courses, I've helped people, and what happens is they take my courses, they take other people's courses, and the next thing I get is what's next? What do I do next? How do I keep learning? And I started realizing, well, wait a minute, I can't just keep creating class after class after class, and it's harder to keep track of where you are and all this stuff. So I said, you know what? I just came up with this idea. I said, I'm going to create an online learning community that's going to be focused around AI. I don't care what level you're at. I don't care what business you're in, industry, profession. It's going to be a community where I'll share information. People can share with each other. They can show what they've been doing and learn from each other. I'll bring experts in to help talk about it. We're going to have weekly meetups. There's challenges. There's going to be challenges that'll come out. Like I may throw a picture and say, hey, take this picture, go to your favorite AI and do this with it, and then see what you get back, and people will learn from each other. So I'm building this thing called the AI Clatch, and it's we're building it. So if you go to my LinkedIn and click on that view the website, it'll take you to the website, the page where we're doing signups right now because we haven't launched it yet, finishing the content, but there will be a newsletter that comes out. So just trying to learn. I've got some recordings that I'm going to do called 59-second AI. I'm actually going to, in fact, the website's sort of built for that right now, but I haven't got any content out there yet. I'm going to wear bright floral shirts. I love my floral Hawaiian type style shirts. And in 59 seconds, I'm going to teach you something about AI. And I'm going to start posting those on YouTube, and they'll be part of the community also. So those are going to be coming out and on LinkedIn. So I'm just going to keep creating content and sharing with people to help them at least be comfortable, understand it. As you mentioned, Leslie, yeah, on LinkedIn, if you go out right on on the profile page, I've got my prompt today. We're just over 2,700 subscribers now. I started that April 1st of last year. And yes, when I was thinking about it in March and told my wife I was going to launch it, she thought it was a joke. I said, no, it's not. And I'm going to prompt one. I'm going to put one every day. She goes, every day. I said, every day. So I actually adjusted it though this past year because people had asked some things. So every Monday through Saturday is a prompt. Sunday's a recap of the 6 prompts
Mm-hmm.
because they're so hard to find the newsletters on the old newsletter editions on LinkedIn. It's kind of weird the way they do
Yeah,
it.
it is.
So every Sunday though, you can see all the 6 prompts, and they vary. They're personal. They are professional. They're about you, career, how to do things. It's just they vary different things. The minimalist wardrobe is probably one of my more popular ones. People loved that one to create minimalist wardrobes. So
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Wow.
it's a lot of fun. So those are the ways. And then perpeta.com is my main website, but it's all linked in there from the LinkedIn. Everything on LinkedIn you can find and get there. So
Okay. We did have somebody type in the chat that
sure.
said, thank you for the prompt today. Use it a lot.
Good.
I've seen where people are training AI to become their assistant for work and training AI to write in their own voice. What are the steps in training AI to customize to me in my work?
Sure. So it's in some of the, like OpenAI's ChatGPT, they call it custom instructions, and that's technically some of them all call that same thing. So you've got many different ways to do that, and the biggest thing I do is I say build profiles, build a profile of yourself. And that document, if you download the one that's the AI roadmap journey on my website, perpeta.com/learn, the learning resources, you can go out there, and in there I tell you how to build profiles. I show you how to build profiles of you, maybe a spouse, maybe a pet. So if you're doing activities and you tell all about your pet, then you can say, hey, we're doing this activity, we want to involve the pet, and then it knows more about your pet. It'll help know. So I say build profiles to get AI to better understand you. And you're going to have multiple. You're going to have a personal one, you're going to have a professional one, maybe you've got a hobby specific one. Don't be afraid to build very specific profiles, and then include them with your, either as custom instructions in a conversation, or attach them with your prompt sometime and say, using this profile, here's what I want to do. And then one of the things too, and this is that accountability coach, when you get my script and see it, with a very simple conversation, start a conversation, give it this script, and then it basically instructs AI to say, every day I'm going to come in, or I'm going to say good morning, you're going to give me some inspirational quote, and then you're going to ask me what I did. So you do that, and then you've instructed it. The instructions say, I will, when I say goodbye, we will end the conversation. And you say goodbye, it says, okay, see you again tomorrow. You come back to that same conversation tomorrow, and it will continue to operate. So the more you do stuff like that, the more it gets to know you, the more it understands
Mhm.
you. So don't be afraid. And this is, well, don't be afraid, but this is part of where everyone's saying, oh yeah, tell it everything about you. And then people are like, well, wait a minute, what is this thing? And if it knows that much about me and you don't know enough about it, that's that relationship piece. That's why I say
Mhm.
better understand it. And if you don't understand something, ask it. Ask AI, how did you come up with that? Or you can even say, how much do you know of me? Or you've probably seen some people have been doing that. We have given everything you know, give me a picture of you, which is pretty funny. I tried that and it could not come up with a picture. And I was befuddled. Liam Domarty, one of my buddies there on LinkedIn, said,
Mhm.
how does that happen with all the stuff you do with AI? So, of course, what I do, I asked AI in that conversation, why can't you? And it said, because you have memory turned off. And I do. I don't want memory across all my conversations, because I have a lot of different conversations,
Uh-huh.
very professional, personal stuff. And it was getting confused. Like my Promptly HR, I have a Promptly HR weekly newsletter that it was getting confused with Prompt a day. I'm like, no, these are very, so I turned the memory off.
Okay.
So it didn't know how to generate a picture of me. So, ask AI, what else can I give you to help me in the voice, help understand my voice, my tone, my thoughts? And
Mhm.
a lot of times what I do in my profiles, I have scales. So I'll say, on a scale of 1 to 10, being 1 being absolutely hilariously funny, 10 being ultra professional, make this a 4, make it a 7, make it a 2. That way, then
Mhm.
it kind of knows, all right, that's my style. I want to go after funny. I don't want to go after professional. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun. I had it roast me. I had it make me a superhero.
Yep. Then people were
Did a
doing the
good job.
dolls. Everyone probably saw, if you're on LinkedIn, it's like, what would I look like as an action figure? And oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Any closing questions? All right. Well, Paul, thank you very much.
You're
There
very
was a
welcome.
lot of great information. If you will send me those prompts you mentioned, I will
I will.
send those out to everybody
Yep.
that signed up, as well as the recording if any of you guys want to share it with coworkers or anything like that. Thanks very much.
All right.
Everybody have a
Thanks, everyone.
great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.